Welcome back. You're watching Citizen Extra. On the campaign trail, both Jubilee and NASA are promising free secondary education. One of the campaign messages that has the two competing sides clash. Jubilee accusing NASA of copying its campaign promises. But just how realistic is this and how can it be achieved? First, let's take a look at what has been happening on the campaign trail.
Secondary school itakuwa free. Na hiyo tutaanza, manake mpango ya pesa serikali inaanza mwezi wa Julai.
Copy what you hear your other opponents. Sasa leo kule Kakamega asimutu ya kitendawili amesema mkinichagua nitawaletea elimu ya bure. Mnaweza kuamini mtu ambaye hata hajafikiria amesikia tukisema yake ni kupiga kama record player ati arudie yale ambayo amesemwa.
Right, in studio now I have Janet Ouko, Director, Elimu Yetu Coalition, Omboko Milembe is the Chair of KUPPET, Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, and Charles Munyui, a political analyst. Thank you all for making time for us this morning. Omboko, I'll start with you. Of course, you now, let's avoid the politics, or if you can, or you can also talk about politics if you can. Now that both NASA and Jubilee are promising to do this, one saying you're copying what we have been saying, the question is, how realistic is this? If it was to be achieved. Or first, what do you make of what has been happening on the campaign trail?
Oh, thank you. One, how realistic is this? And what do I make of the campaigns?
Yes.
One, the two political divides are trying now to sell their manifestos to the Kenyans. What I like about the whole thing is that both of them are agreeing that it is time to provide free second school education. But I don't like the way they are competing on who can provide and when in terms of timelines, because there are challenges ahead which they will certainly be facing as they face the provision of free second school education. Let me look at the Jubilee bloc. They began this process of free primary school education, but mainly it's Kibaki who began it. But when you look into their manifesto, they have not achieved everything that they promised Kenyans they would do. You know, in their manifesto there's something on free milk which they have not actualized, and they would not want anybody to remind them about it. There's something about ICT centers, and finally there's something about the laptops which are actually not there. So I don't think any one of the blocks should be priding in we can do it and we are the ones who can do it better. On the other side, Raila, I think his NASA team is, the only advantage they have is that they have never been in the field, and sometimes a new player is expected to shine. The way Kibaki came in and he said within 100 days I'll be introducing free primary school education, and he did it. That's the only strength he has. But he must also realize that the NASA bloc has not been in government and has not tried it. But what I know, if you look around the world and around Africa, free secondary school education, it's time for it. Because number one, constitutionally, this should have been implemented by the Jubilee government, because the constitution says they should provide basic education to all the students in Kenya, and basic education runs from primary to secondary. So to that level they have failed. And if this other bloc is saying it will come and implement it, maybe they picked on September, because the NASA bloc is friendly to Ghana. The president of Ghana said recently that in September he will introduce not only free second school education, but he will also remove any other fees charged in second schools, and in fact even give free boarding education, and even give meals in the day schools. So I don't know if they are borrowing from Ghana. The timelines are not important. What is important is for us to ask these guys that, are you aware there are challenges of teachers? Are you aware there will be challenges of infrastructure? Are you aware that there will be challenges concerning the legal framework? And are you aware that we must maintain the quality, not just the shouts on who is bringing it first and who is bringing it not second?
Janet?
Wow, I think for us, it's not time for us to have referendum as to whether or not we need free secondary education. It's long overdue, and anyway the Constitution of Kenya provides for free education for every learner, 0 to 18 years. And that said, we want to challenge the two political divides, that really it doesn't help so much for anybody to stand on a podium and make such declarations, knowing too well primary school is already not free as we speak. Do not mind that it was introduced.
You say that why?
Because parents are still paying levies, and if there is anybody in government that does not believe that parents are paying levies, let them come out and tell us what is happening in public schools. Truth of the matter is the primary, the education sector has been overfunded, but nobody is keen to take the money to the right places, so that as we speak now, when you hear the Jubilee administration says that they have increased the funding, truth of the matter is in 2003 the allocation was 1,020, but in 2013 they only added that amount by 200 shillings. So we are now looking at a situation where we are saying for us to have free secondary education, according to the Kilemi Mwiria report, every learner should be given by government 23,000 Kenya shillings. As at now, the government is only giving 12,000. So we are saying that the government will be able to raise 11,000 additional monies per student. So I think it's not as easy as one would want to believe. And if there is goodwill, really, we should now be talking about absolutely free primary education. Even before we go to writing something different, let us ensure that there is absolutely free primary education. But that said, we want to embrace the promise and remind the politicians that we shall be out here, and the Kenyan populace are watching. We will be out here to remind them that you just don't make a proclamation, but you also follow it through with actions.
Charles?
Well, allow me to kindly disabuse something Janet has said in terms of education, free primary education being free. I think the reason as to why we have jails is because there are people who will always break the law. We have seen Matiang'i come into the education sector, clean it. It was not clean. Everyone knows. And it was part of Jubilee government. But he has come in, we have seen a difference. We have seen people refusing to give out certificates, much as they've been told you cannot deny students or individuals who have sat their exams their certificates simply because they've not cleared school fees. And I think let us deal with the issues of people who are not following the law, adhering to the law, as issues of individuals who should be sacked or maybe terminated or even be jailed. But let us look at the holistic issue.
Is it a case of a little bad apples, as Charles is saying? When you're talking about this free primary education in itself, you're saying it's not even free. Charles is saying this is just, I mean, you should treat it as individual cases of people not following what should be done, or is it a systematic problem?
He's not correct, because when you're saying that it costs 1,200 to educate any child in the primary school, Omboko here will tell you, and the teachers will agree with you, that money is not enough. Same case to what is happening at the secondary school, subsector. So what we are saying is, even when you hear NASA saying that we are going to do this and ABCD, they're not coming into a brand new fiscal space. It is the same resources that probably have been there, and that is why we are saying it is good for us to be genuine and for us to be honest. For example, the conglomeration of people that are within NASA and within Jubilee, all of them have been in parliament. What, for instance, have they done? What he's talking about, a menace of people charging high. Are you telling me that parliament does not have the role of oversight, or is there an admission that they did not do that role of oversight? And what new are they coming to do, given the circumstances? When we sat at the Kilemi Mwiria report, and he will tell you, a good number of the recommendations were supposed to have been taken up. They were supposed to have been legislated on so that we can have a stable sector. But without that, a lot of things is just going to be water down the bridge, and a lot of problems are going to be transferred to the schools, and the teachers are not going to be managing it anyhow.
I think to pick on where I was, it is illegal to have a kid at home for whatever reason. No child is supposed to, if a child is kept at home by a parent for whatever reason, be it that fee we are talking about primary school student, then that parent is supposed to be in jail. That is policy, and it's government policy, Jubilee government policy. So I don't see how you can say education is not free, because the government is making it expensive. People are supposed to pay, and at the same time we have not seen parents being jailed. I think we have seen transition from nursery to primary schools improving drastically, and that's why we are talking issues in some areas of infrastructure, classrooms and teachers, but the gains cannot be, we cannot say those gains are not there. I think education, primary education is free, that cannot be disputed. Moving forward in terms of secondary education and manifestos of either be it NASA or Jubilee, I think everyone would want to meet the provisions of Article 43 on socio-economic rights, education being one of them. And if you look critically at Article 53 on free basic education, which goes up to secondary education, it will be a question of who is believable. Is it Jubilee administration or is it NASA administration in terms of delivering on free education? And I want to see, I want to believe Raila, Uhuru and Ruto will be talking about what they have implemented, maternity free, full maternal services and stuff like that. So I think moving forward, it's not a question of whether this is a good thing or a bad thing or whether it can be done or not being done. It's a question of whom can we trust with our resources to implement this.
But is it a good thing or bad thing?
It is a totally awesome. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Transition is going to be amazing. We have seen a transition going up to about 55, 60.
What about quality?
What?
What about quality?
Quality, primary education is free. What quality are we talking about? We have seen now the system of education again changing from what we had 844 to 2633, and we are looking at now competences and talent and those issues that kids are good at. So I think we'll be able to focus around those things, but let us walk and chew at the same time. We can be able to be improving on quality, looking at issues quality, and at the same time looking at ensuring transition from primary to secondary school is as close to 100% as possible.
Okay. I want to believe he lives in Kenya. I want to believe he's living in Kenya.
John, let me assist something because my friend looks to be so cosmetic about free primary school education. I want to caution him that one, we want to congratulate the bold step taken by the government to provide free primary school education, but there are real challenges there which Janet has raised to you and which make it not completely free as would want to be cosmetic here. Number one, do you know that there are no teachers in schools and parents really subside in the employment of teachers? Almost a quarter of the teachers in the primary schools are employed by the teachers, the PTAs, and the others in the secondary schools are employed by the BOGs. And that means that that element is being paid for by the public and the parents secretly, and nobody would want to talk about it. Furthermore, do you know that even as we talk to you now, that the disbursements to schools are not done on time, and parents are forced to pay awaiting those disbursements? For instance, this third term, and I'm a teacher, I'm aware that they have only sent 12% of the otherwise 20% that is supposed to be sent in schools. And it was sent last week on Wednesday, to be precise. How have been our schools running? So we must understand that there are challenges right in the schools, and which even as we introduce free secondary school education, we must be ready, the two blocks must be ready to go and face them and say that we shall be able to disburse money on time, we shall be able to employ more teachers. Otherwise, there are other costs that otherwise the parents are experiencing. I thought this is important for our person to know.
Okay. Janet, you're not also agreeing with Charles?
And
especially in terms of quality.
Yeah, and not even that, even the whole element of free education. It is true that in 2003 the government declared free primary education, and it was really a commendable thing. And if you look at the influx of children back to the school system, it's amazing, and I can only imagine that is going to be the same effect, you know, when the levies at secondary school level are done away with. But so many years down the line, since 2003 up to date, the capitation at primary school level has remained the same. The government tells us that they increased this capitation by 200 shillings. This is not increment. This just caters for inflation. So there is no increment whatsoever, and that money is so not enough. It is just not enough. And if he were honest enough and he's living in Kenya and has been to those schools, he will tell you that parents are even paying much more. The government gives in 1,200, but parents are even paying as much as 2,000. In those primary schools. So you can't sit here and cheat Kenyans that really primary school has been absolutely free. And I would expect, and this is what I was expecting, even the opposition, for example, that is their role. They were supposed to be oversighting, telling government, hey, you've been implementing free primary education, but primary school is not already free. But we can't have people who are sitting pretty in various positions not putting any pressure about this important issue now. But it has just become very important for them now because they know it is going to fetch for them food. I think Kenyans cannot be taken like that. Let us ask the critical questions in terms of how do you go to secondary school when primary school is already not free? Where were you when children were falling out of school systems, when education became so expensive in this country? Where were these politicians that now believe that education is so important and it's so, you know, and every child should have it? So I think for me, it's good to put politics aside at some point and just face these people head on and tell them what you're telling us is not practical, and we know it. And number two, this is about our taxes. Nobody is coming in with money from his pocket and paying for our children education. We want to know what frameworks have you put in place. If the amount of money, an ordinary 1,200 that was put in primary schools, the other day we had a confession by the education CS talking about a lot of money having been put in primary schools, you know, subsector, but a lot of it, you don't see it. You don't see books in schools, you don't have money in the bank. So we are now talking about secondary school. We want to double the capitation, because if government wants to make, any government will make secondary school free, it has to double the capitation. We are talking about every child getting 23,000 Kenya shillings from the coffers, but there is nobody talking about a framework as to how that money will be put in good use, so that the taxpayers of this country can also have value for their money. It's not just about throwing money somewhere.
So for both Jubilee and NASA, I mean, is it a good or bad thing to have free secondary education? Or would you, as, I mean, you've been in the sector, both of you, with Omboko, should this happen, or should we wait first and sort out what is happening in the primary schools?
Thank you, thank you. I thought that's a very important question for me. We as the union, one, we welcome it, because we have been pushing for free primary school education, and later on now we were pushing for free secondary school education. All we are saying is that we are throwing in a caution. But it is a very good idea, because what we were lacking was the political goodwill. And now we are destined to get it, because whether it's NASA picking it, they are promising us the same, and whether it's Jubilee picking it, they are also promising us the same. And it is long overdue. Kenya's budgetary status is above Uganda, which introduced it in 2007, is above Namibia, which has introduced it in 2016, is South Africa. We can leave it out. But even if we go to the northern part of Africa, Ghana has introduced it in totality, and for them they are even saying they'll remunerate the teachers well for the influx of students in schools. I wish Jubilee or NASA could push their argument beyond just saying we were the first guys to come up with this idea, and say for us we shall also be remunerating the teachers well. We shall be giving a meal to the students in the primary schools, because today the students in the day schools, the parents have to pay 3,000 to 2,500 for meals in school, so that we actually see them vividly coming out to give us the confidence that they want to actualize this and benefit the Kenyans. And Jano, thank you very much for what you have said. Kenyans must also understand there's nothing like free. Free education is education funded by taxpayers' money or other donors whom we may source for. So again, that aspect must come out, and our Kenyan people must know it. But finally, a good idea, welcome, but be ready to face the challenges. And as a union, we shall be giving them a questionnaire to try and bring out the specifics of implementation.
How are they going to implement it? Janet, yes.
From a socio, from a social activist point of view, it's a very good idea. But looking at it, from the economic point of view, it's a very bad idea. Why do I say this? There is no point of holding all the children in school and taking all our taxes there, and those children have got no teachers, they have got no books, they have got no nothing. It's called wasting time schooling, and actually no education is taking place in the first place. So I think the government should also look into, if as we speak today we have seen Hussein, we have watched photos here, children in Turkana under trees, they have got no teacher, herders, fellow herders are the ones that are taking care of them. I think there are some things that are not acceptable, and we can't move that way, in that direction. It's not just about pleasing people in a blanket statement that this is going to be free, but we are talking about in an accountable system where we also care about putting resources that will give you value, and really that we will see. We do not want to look at a situation that we are looking at. 33,000 is what you've gotten out of a system. That is called waste of resources. And I think if the politicians could agree to have that dialogue, and if Kenyans could ask back these questions, because as Omboko is saying, it is not their money. This is our money that they are using to get advantage, so that they can get these positions and then start giving us narratives as to how this idea it will be done this way or that way, but they don't have a framework together, as it were.
All right.
Can I make some
I think it's all very good. We have just heard from the chairman of KUPPET saying it has been done in other countries. Countries that are ranked slightly below us in terms of GDP and maybe things like of that nature. So it means, in short, it can be done. Now, I think we need to also appreciate that government is not just about the executive. The legislature, and especially the National Assembly here, has a very major role to play. If you look at even division of revenue, the money that goes to the county governments and the money that remains with the national government, and especially the amount that remains with the government, the national government, allocation of the same to the various sectors of government, that is the work of members of parliament. So when I'm told that there is a problem with a certain county, there are certain areas where there are no classrooms. Remember, the first aspect of devolution was even CDF a while back, and CDF has done a lot with, especially with members of parliament who knew what they were doing, worked with their people to identify priority projects. And classrooms is something, and police posts and stuff like that are things that we have seen from politicians that are keen on solving problems of their people. So I think holistically the issue is good. The idea is a noble one. It can be done. We have just been told by the chairman of KUPPET, and it must be done. We must ensure it is done and it's done properly. If there are issues here and there, let us work with those. Let us chew and walk as we deal with these things.
Okay. Finally, you wanted to say something, Omboko, finally?
Oh, I just wanted to make this quite clear that the government of Kenya has a history of having provided free education at the high level. It was among the early governments after independence, alongside Angola and South Africa, to provide higher education. I think we were beneficiaries of that, those of us who went to the university in the early times. But like the economists of education would put it, and I quote here Michael Todaro, it is better that they provide a lot of the basic education, because usually basic education benefits the state more than when you give the free education to the individuals at the high level, because high level education benefits the individual more. So the idea is economically very correct, to provide it to the basic level.
Okay. Janet, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, and as I said before, it's not whether we want to have a referendum as to whether this is a good or bad idea. We already had a referendum in 2010, and the Constitution of Kenya is very clear that this is what even the government of Jubilee should have done in the first place. So I think it's a good idea, but what we are saying is that we would not want to see the confusion that accompanied the 2003 implementation of the free primary education. We would want, Kenyans now want to see more value for money. We would want to see those resources put into good use. We would want to see other accompaniments, not just children coming back to class. We would also want to see more teachers coming to school. We would also want to see infrastructure expansion, so that then we are not dealing with the problem of poor quality of education, because it doesn't help anyone, and that is where the question of the economics come in. Because if you're just taking people through schooling, to grow up, then you're really not putting the resources into good use.
Thank you so much. Janet Muthoni Ouko is the director of the Limietu Coalition, and Omboko Milemba, chair of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET. Charles Munyui, our political analyst, thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Now, the African Election Observation Group has just launched a report on the status of Kenya's general election. The group is in partnership with a number of local, regional and international independent election observers. Stephen Leto has been following what has been happening this morning. Leto, what is the latest there?
Well, a very good morning to you, Hussein Mohammed, there in studio. Indeed, like you've put it right, that the African Election Observation Group had been holding a breakfast meeting to give a report on the status of the country's general elections, barely less than 60 days to the general election, and a lot of interesting issues coming up in this particular discussion that was hosted by the African Election Observation Group. Part of it giving a summary of what they have called a research they conducted between the 23rd of May and coming up with the findings of that particular research that shows that turnout will be higher by about 4 million new voters in addition to those who participated in the 2013 general election. And Hussein, also what they have said is out of what they had done the research, they say that about 89% of the respondents said said that they will turn up to vote in the August 8 polls. That is barely 60 days away. And also they are saying in their research that Jubilee areas will have a higher turnout as opposed to that of the National Super Alliance or NASA strongholds. That's saying that should then the election be won by the turnout, then the Jubilee Party led by President Uhuru Kenyatta, his Deputy William Ruto will be having an upper hand. For this case also, most interestingly in this research by the African Election Observation Group is that they said out of the respondents that they reached out to, 51% say that they will turn up to vote for President Uhuru Kenyatta of the Jubilee Party, while 39% will vote for the National Super Alliance presidential candidate Raila Odinga of ODM. That, of course, a matter that will, of course, bring a lot from across the political divide. Remember the other time, barely 2 weeks ago, Infotrack did a poll that placed President Uhuru Kenyatta at 47% and Raila Odinga of the National Super Alliance at 42%, with a gap of about 5%. And so quickly I want to sample two views, one of them from one of the key guys who are organizing this particular research, just to tell us the methodology you used and why do you think that your research varies from what was released by your the other, let's say, by Infotrack? As we found out is that opinion polling is at a place within politics that is becoming very fluid and requires a lot more thinking to go into it. I will just give the example of the American elections, of Brexit, and even the British elections that are starting today morning in Britain, where the place of opinion polls has come into sharp focus. What we have done is that we have done a research. We have done a research that's dependent on opinion from people, and it was mainly to inform what are the main issues in this election. We wanted to find out about voter turnout. We wanted to find out why will people be turning out to vote, and we wanted to know what are the main, as an observer group, what are the main places that we need to put our resources in order to find out, to have a proper observation mission within this election. So with the key findings of voter turnout, we are likely to have about 4 million voters from last time, which was about 12.3 million voters. We are looking at something about 16 million votes. That means that these are people probably not exactly new voters, or first-time voters, but people who maybe did not participate, or actually people who registered to vote afresh. Then again, we are looking at reasons why people are turning out to vote. It turns out that local issues at the MC and governor level are very huge motivation. Another key finding is that a whole new concept into voter turnout is coming about, and this is called community pressure. Community pressure is, I think we first saw it with the voter registration process, where people could not participate in certain community activities, like you could not be sold for alcohol, you could not take a matatu or something like that. So that was the basis of our research. Just it can form our observation mission for this election. Thank you. Just before one bit research coming out of the wake, whereby the political parties are going to engage in a serious campaign. This placing Uhuru Kenyatta at 51%, coming from the Jubilee Party. What do you think of this particular research? Just briefly.
Mine is just to say this is the reflection of what is on the ground. This is what the people on the ground are saying. And we all know that there has been conductions of such analysis even in Brexit, even in the elections in the United States. And what I can say is that this time the election is going to experience a greater turnout than even the last election that we had. Also, I can say that the IEBC should take it upon itself to know what is going to be done make sure that the people do not boycott coming to the election. That is through education and also sensitizing on measures that can be taken to encourage a lot of people to do the turnout.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Hussein, that is what the report or research just basically painting a picture of what is going to happen in the next campaigns as all the political parties hit the ground running. Remember, a lot is happening this weekend, of course, in Western Kenya, where the Jubilee team is being led by President Uhuru Kenyatta, while on the other side, the NASA team being led by Raila Odinga at the coastal tour. And so we'll be, of course, giving you a comprehensive detail of this particular research in our subsequent bulletins.
Leto, if you can stay with us, I don't know if you still can hear me. Are you saying, and if you still have them, the members of that election observation group, for Africa, you're saying it's in partnership with independent observation groups in Kenya, in the region, and internationally as well. They are saying that turnout will be higher for about 4 million votes in this coming election. They're also saying that turnout in Jubilee areas will be higher than turnout in NASA strongholds. Is that what they're saying, and why?
Well, they're saying that out of the 4 million basically new voters or the turnout that they are expecting in the August 8 polls, they're saying that the Jubilee strongholds will record a higher turnout against the NASA strongholds. Of course, these really not backed or not substantiated in this particular research, but they say that out of their findings or the research that they have conducted, out of the 1,888 respondents, majority of the areas that fall under the red color will then have a higher turnout. For instance, they say in Nyanza there will be about a 40% non-willingness to turn up in August 8 to vote, while in Western Kenya all the same, and also at the coastal region also recording a low key participation. When you come to Rift Valley and Central Kenya, the report says that, you know, there is a very low, I mean, when you ask respondents on what they think, whether they are going to boycott the election or not, they say that, you know, we are going to vote. And so very few of them in the responding team say that they are going to boycott the elections, that is in Central Kenya and Rift Valley. But when that same question is asked to respondents that fall in Western Kenya, Nyanza, and the coastal region, they say majority of them, or just slightly below 40, 30%, or 25 about there, say that they are going to boycott that particular election. But on the flip side, they say also 47% of the voters in the NASA strongholds say that they are not going to heed on their principal's call that should there be a ruling in the court that the constituency tallying of the presidential election will not be final, then they are going to boycott the election. 47% of voters in the NASA stronghold say they will turn up and vote despite the calls by their bosses in the National Super Alliance.
Right, and if you can still stay with us, because I would want to know from them what are the reasons they were giving us to not turning out on the election day itself. In studio now I have Gabriel Muduma, and I also have Dunstan Omari. Thank you so much for making time for us. I can see you already smiling. You're itching to talk about those findings, including what the group says is 51%. Uhuru will win by 51.7%, and Raila Odinga will have 39%. Dunstan, I'll start with you. Dunstan?
I totally don't agree with those guys, unless they are replicating the elections of 2013. Several dynamics are changing. The areas they are calling Jubilee stronghold, are they narrowing to Jubilee stronghold in terms of who the Jubilee stronghold will vote? How many of the Jubilee stronghold in Meru, in Bomet, in Eldoret, in Maasai land are likely to vote for a NASA candidate and not a Jubilee candidate? How many people in the NASA stronghold are likely to vote anti-Raila Odinga by virtue of the independent candidates? So really, the question of voter turnout this election, Hussein, is very problematic because there are internal problems within parties which might make people still go to vote but do not vote for that candidate that is presumed to be in the red or in the NASA brigade. So in my own perspective is that these people should have also factored in the Bernie Sanders theory, the silent majority. We have seen quite a number of whenever the NASA is having a political rally, whether they go to Ishaweri in Gatundu or ODM goes, whether they go to Gatundu or whether President Uhuru Kenyatta goes to Bondo, thousands of people are attending. Majority of these people are attending either are curious or they are paid or they are just going to observe. Do they really reflect what they are going to vote? The Bernie Sanders theory is that now we have voters who are silent. What they will tell you during an opinion poll and what they will do are two distinct ideas. So in my own view is that we do not have any more credibility in these researches because the voter has mutated, the researchers have not mutated to understand the new theory of a Kenyan voter.
Right, Gabriel?
Hussein, last time I think I was mentioning that it's not my place to argue with scientific facts, but just to argue a little bit on what Dunstan has talked about, I'm still to see whether the presidential group has largely been affected in this regard. I told you last time I believe the president will be starting from where he left yesterday, where he left in 2013, if we are to put into consideration the fact that he's made inroads in areas that were perceived to be NASA, and also NASA, to an effect, they've also made inroads to areas that were perceived to be Jubilee's stronghold. But having said that, I think we need to uniquely look at this in such a way that there has not been and again, I'm not really putting down any presidential candidate who comes from the independent sphere, but I'm saying I have not seen a serious one who would actually dent the numbers as they were in 2013. However, we can expect a lot when it comes to other electable seats, and that's where I think Dunstan's argument holds a lot of water. Yes, he may lack, both sides actually, they may lack the numbers that they had last time because of the emergence of the independent candidate. However, I am yet to see or actually crack in numbers that may affect the presidential ballot to a high extent. So again, on that one we have to wait and see. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and actually disavow or actually water down the numbers that we've just seen. I'm not one to actually poke holes in something that has been done scientifically. Okay, we'll talk about these figures again shortly. Today again, Uhuru Kenyatta is in the western region. He's in Kakamega already. He'll be held in Trans Nzoia County later on. We saw him in the Kisii region and Nyamira over the last two days. Do you think it changes anything in these perceived opposition strongholds, Dunstan?
My view is that, for example, let me start from my backyard in Kisii and Nyamira. The president gave 358 million shillings for the Kisii IDPs and 470 in my county, Nyamira. The president did a tremendous work, and that was supposed to bring more votes to him. The problem is that they never anticipated the type of propaganda NASA is going to release. In the ground now in Kisii and in Nyamira, the narrative is that the president gave 5,000 shillings. 358 divided by the number of voters. The president failed to nail it very clearly that he was giving 50,000 shillings for each IDP. That narrative has made even the votes that Jubilee had secured become watered. The president's party suffers from one issue: communication to the masses. They do very well in terms of service delivery, but in terms of articulating those issues, projecting the messages, they score 0. Number two, when they appear in these areas, the question is, why the timing? 60 days before elections. Why the disparity? Why the discrimination? Other regions were paid long time ago. Number four, people are being paid 50,000 shillings. How much did they lose? There are Kisiis, there are Luyas who lost to the tune of 10 million shillings. Is 50,000 shillings not an insult?
to the Kisii community. So in my own view and from where I'm coming from, there was lack of an explanatory process of that amount of money, why it was given late, how it is being given, and what is the government procedure to deal with it. When you see Jubilee reacting now that they are also going to give 33 other counties, the question is, they have opened a Pandora box. A floodgate of issues are coming. People are asking, why not in Migori? Why not in Kakamega? Why not in Nyandarua? Why not all over? So in my own view, the president's visit failed to address other issues that are very critical in those areas. Kisii does not only have an issue about the IDPs. There is the issue of the tea prices. There is a feeling that there is a disparity in terms of the tea bonuses paid in Kisii to other regions. The question of Kisii University is so key to the Kisii community. The question of the avocado farming, the question of coffee farming. Some regions were given money to bail out from coffee. Why not the coffee of Kisii? Why not? So in my own view, Hussein, I think that the president could have done better had he gone with people not perceived to be brokers in Kisii, because the people selling the president's agenda in Kisii do not connect with the Kisiis. And if that proceeds, the same approach I've seen the president is using Ababu Namwamba in Western Kenya. Does he represent the willingness and the wishes of the community? If the president's team could change the policy, could change and remove the businessmen surrounding the president as brokers, then the president has a head start in those areas. So Gabriel, it is not a question of road shows. It's a question of connecting to the aspirations, to the needs of the people. Still 60 days is a long time. The president is listening. State House is listening. If they change tact, they might penetrate the Kisii region tremendously.
Okay. Hussein, I couldn't agree more with what Dunstan has said, and actually given the edifiable knowledge that he has about the Omogusi nation. I think one thing that comes very clear is the word that he's using, which is connect. If I was to advise the Jubilee Brigade, that's also something I would bring close. You're looking at Kisii, which is holding about anywhere between 700 to 900 votes. When you look at Kisii and Nyamira, and those are serious really votes when you look at them. And then you also have, like Danson is saying, the diaspora votes. So really, when you look at the Omogusi nation, you know, I think I may be correct that they are the second largest vast group nationally, yes. Apart from the Kikuyus. And really, they've actually really integrated very well within the Kenyan community. So when you're talking about the diaspora votes, these are people you must connect with. Now, that word connect, and really Kisii and Nyamira reminds me a little bit about more. I actually like to equate them, because the way I've actually started Kisii and Nyamira, I've also started the very same Hussein, the way they go almost hand to hand with a place like Meru and Tharaka. Yes. These are people who are so issue based. You must connect with them based on issues. Forget about the monetary aspect here and there. They must feel, you know, you addressing what they want to be addressed. Like I reminded you some time back, the Meru people, they were really not looking much on the handles. They are looking at the industry, the Miraa industry addressed very well. The Rakanini people are looking at roads addressed, because, I mean, these two people, like I'm telling you, are majorly farmers. Same way you're talking about the people in Nyamira and Kisii, they are also largely farmers. And so when they come to sit down and have their issues discussed on the table, what they are looking for really is that connection. So I agree again with Dunstan, a message has to change, and everything that Jubilee will be doing in the areas of Omogusi, they must be sure about one thing, that NASA will come with something opposing, and they will oppose them seriously. If it was me, that packaging of the integrated IDPs, I would have packaged it in a very good message to show that I am coming near almost like a savior, even though I'm not. But then you question where somebody like Kalonzo Musyoka was, where he was the vice president, and also Raila Odinga, where he was the prime minister. Why didn't they sort the integral IDPs back then? So the issue of asking why now should not even arise. And that's how I believe you'd have packaged that message and given it to the Omogusi nation. Okay,
I would have really wanted to go into this conversation, but sadly we seem to be completely out of time. Thank you so much, Gabriel Muhuma, and political analyst, and also Danson Omari, political analyst. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Right now, let's talk to Brian